It's How I Make Money with Andy Beadle. We are live. It is How I Make Money podcast with Andy Beadle. I am joined this week by Marsha Marseille and Kevin Castel of Castel Consulting Company. That is Castel, consultingcompany.com on the internet. Go find them. They're based out in New York and New Jersey. We have a couple of firsts again this week. Kevin and Marsha are our first owner team that we've had on the show. And the second first is that I screwed up the audio horribly in the first time that we did this, and we're starting over again. So their answers are going to be much more polished, suave, and sophisticated now than we're used to because we've done all this once. And again, welcome to the show again. We talked about some great stuff, and now I get to go over it again, think of better ways to ask my question. You guys run a management and accounting consultancy up in that New York and New Jersey region. Well, that's where you're based. I'm sure you've got clients all over the place. Yeah. Talk a little bit. We talked about this before. One of the things that I think is so important for small businesses is having access to really powerful tools and ideas as a consulting, especially starting out. I know you guys work with early stage. Talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you bring to your clients early on in your engagement with them, and the sorts of problems you kind of come in and solve and uncover as you go.
So, as you mentioned, we do have an accounting and management consulting company. So we do it with a focus of financial management and operational systems. So when we first interact with our clients, we try to understand their current system and their current process, actually the management, the service, and also to their process.
And their needs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we can really assess it and build a strategic plan for them to help them actually overcome any challenges that they are going through at the moment. So whether they want to pivot from their current
source of making money,
source of income, or if they actually try to they're having an issue. Okay, I don't know how to increase my revenue, or I'm actually spending too much money on costs. How can I actually decrease my costs? Where can I decrease my costs? Or even any personnel issue.
Or it could just be I'm unorganized and I want to kind of get a hold on our system. So that's like what we do. Kevin more focuses on the numbers.
Yeah.
I focus on organization and process and system. And that's what makes us a good team.
Yeah.
Well, and I joked earlier that this was Kevin's first day out of his dark room with a calculator, but we all know that's not true. He's way too social, for that to be the case.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time talking to clients.
That is
a lot of time
what we do.
Clients,
I hear you.
I mean, it's very important. I mean, you have to build that rapport. We're always talking and solving problems. And believe it or not, sometimes it's personal problems, because if you're so invested and most of your time is spent on your business, the world's intertwined.
Oh, yeah.
So one thing, you could think 1 second you're discussing increasing revenue, and the next thing you're like, oh, I need to pay this bill, I got to pay that bill, and you're like, okay, I get it. Like, you're dependent on your business. I'm here to help. We're gonna find those solutions and work towards improving things.
Well, and all of those things are relationship driven at their core, right? When you are helping somebody guide their business, something that near and dear to their hearts, that is going to often be as important to them as their family. Sad but true, right? But that happens.
Right.
You've got to have the kind of relationship where you can have, I don't mean to say hard discussions, but where you can tell people the truth and you're ready to talk about it. A lot of people don't want to hear the truth.
A lot of people don't.
And Marsha, you brought up a great example with us when we were talking about basic systems. I think a lot of business owners think process system and they kind of go, yeah, I got that under control. And then you talked about the person who's like, man, I'm not getting, this employee's terrible. And, and your basic question is, do you assign them work and then see if they did it, right? I love that example because it seems so obvious, and yet I see it all the time. I'm sure you guys do. What are some of those basic, just to you, kind of obvious things that you'll see when you come into a business where people, if they could just tighten things up a bit, would make a huge difference in their day-to-day work?
I think, as I said, that's a great example. Just simple things like if you have problems or you feel like your employees aren't performing well,
Right.
giving them assignments and, seeing if they're completing them. I think another thing that is really crucial, I think people overlook, is staying on task.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes when you are an owner or a manager, you have so many things happening, you're making so many decisions
Mm-hmm.
that you may not realize that you have a problem staying on task
Right.
and
Prioritizing as well.
prioritizing and getting those things done. I think sometimes it's easy to get lost in the sauce, you can say.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, they're all over the place. Um, some people, they're just focusing or fixating on the wrong things that aren't
Mm-hmm.
priority. And then
Right.
some people are always looking for the next big thing. Like they're
Right.
always like, okay, I'm going to start this, I'm going to start that. Like, you ever walk into a store, for instance, and you're like, I don't really know what store it is. Is this a candy shop? Is it a clothing store?
Yeah.
Like, you're
Oh yeah.
wondering
Yeah, a
what
lot.
what is happening here? And I think we've run into that, like where
Or bakeries, and sometimes they even sell actually grocery products.
yeah, like you're like a semi grocery store. It's like I'm
Yeah.
walking to a
Yeah.
bakery, but you're selling toothpaste. It's not
Right.
really
Yeah.
adding up. And I think that's something that we've really seen. And it's kind of like, and it's when you're trying to communicate that, I think sometimes it's not received always the best
Mm-hmm.
way because they're like,
Oh yeah.
I'm doing, it's working, yada, yada, yada. But it's like,
Right.
this component of it may be working. And that's fine that you're interested in doing all these things, but there's a way to go about it. Like, like there's
Right.
no need for the toothpaste to be sold in the bakery. Like we could sell the toothpaste maybe online on a
Right.
different
And
platform.
actually, to add to that, it is sometimes certain business owners actually, when they try to add more revenues, their decision is the wrong one.
Yeah,
For
Mm-hmm.
like
example, like in the toothpaste
Yep.
it's
decision,
scattered.
it's like, okay, I want to bring more revenue, but you don't do it by adding another product
That
that
Right.
doesn't.
doesn't correlate with your core product. So
Yep.
some is there is things that are so simple, and on top of that, it can easily be workflow system.
Mhm,
Mm-hmm.
Because the best workflow actually creates the best efficiency in your business.
mhm.
So, and
Right.
efficiency turns into money.
Yep.
So, yeah,
If you lack that efficiency, you
yeah,
lack control,
Oh yeah.
organization, and you really cannot measure your work output.
yeah.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that's very important that people kind of overlook. They just think, oh, if the work is done, the work is done. But
Right.
it is vital to know at what rate are you getting this work done.
Mhm.
Right.
Like what is your rate of return? And like, especially if you're offering a service, you have to be able to measure that. Like you
Yep.
have to know, how much time am I dedicating to make a certain amount?
Mhm.
Yep.
And does it make sense?
Sense, yeah.
Like if
Mm-hmm.
you go and get a haircut and it takes 4 hours, I don't think it makes sense, right? Like you're gonna think
I
something's
mean,
off.
Yeah.
But
unless you've got a
right,
lot of hair,
Yeah.
you
exactly.
know.
But if you walk into like a company, let's say they print, I don't know, maybe they print labels on shirts. And
Right.
if it takes them 4 hours to print labels on 20 shirts and they think, oh, that's normal. But it's like, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. Like
Yeah.
maybe we need to reevaluate that. So simple things, when they're put in different contexts, it's
Mm-hmm.
easy for people not like to realize that this is a problem.
Yeah.
But like as I said, the haircut analogy, you're like, okay, that makes sense, but they don't get it in the t-shirt
Mhm.
analogy.
Right.
So
Right.
it's just really getting people to understand what works and what's not working and just
Mm-hmm.
look at things from a different
Perspective,
perspective
yeah.
outside of themselves. Because it's easily to take things personally and feel like, you're the problem, or like you're feeling
Right.
we're attacking your way, and it's not what we're doing. We're here to
Yeah.
help.
And I think it's important for businesses, again, to do what you guys do is pretty rare in the marketplace because there's not a lot of access to someone with experience in the financial and process management kind of
Mm,
world of business in general
mhm.
to then offer their attention to a really small business who's just getting started out. So that's I would argue, a fairly valuable service.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I think that stuff that you talk about, efficiency of your time and obviously your money, become so important, and yet it's a very difficult thing for a lot of entrepreneurs to absorb and say, look, for example, I don't know, maybe you build, I'm stretching here, custom motorcycles, or woodworking is a great example. Okay, you're a craftsperson, and you're somebody who builds these gorgeous furniture pieces. Well, great, take all the time you want on those, but you're going to have to charge a lot for that time, and you probably don't want to spend a whole lot of your time on handcrafting the checks with which you write to pay your bills, right? So it's, not everything is an opportunity to exercise your craft. And I think you're right. I think people have a hard time accepting that sometimes, and they don't want to hear it, So
and
yeah,
I think
I get you.
I think something that I've learned through this process is that because we do cater to more small businesses,
Right.
um, and you come in and you say we need to implement like a process, we need to implement like financial strategies. They're like, oh well, I'm a small business, and I think people overlook it. Like, yeah, you're not a Fortune 500 company. We're
Right.
not telling you to operate yourself in these rigid terms, but you do need to have like process and
Yeah.
discipline and
Yeah.
a system. Like, you still need to
Yeah.
Right.
manage it. I think another big part of a lot of small businesses understanding that importance was especially during the pandemic when they were trying to apply for a lot of the
Yeah.
government
Right.
loans.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of businesses, a lot of clients that we started working with, a lot of them, they actually have a proper accounting system.
Right.
Right.
So
And they're
yeah.
all running to their like accountant. They go see once a year. They're like, can you make these for me so I can, submit this
Right.
for this loan and get this loan? And and it's like right now they're finally realizing, wow, there is an importance. Like, it's
Yeah.
not just big companies that need to have
Yeah.
this in place. As a small business owner, if you like, you should want that for yourself. You should want
Mm-hmm.
to have that structure and want to have um things in place that will allow you to succeed. And that's
Well,
just what we're here for.
and again, I don't think it's going to be hard to find small business owners where you say, hey, how would you like to get to April of every year and not have to scramble to pay what you owe the IRS? I mean, right? Because so
Yeah.
many people find themselves in a position where they haven't paid taxes, they haven't saved for it, and so the first quarter of the year is always a just horror show of trying to figure out the money and make all that work. I agree with you. I
A
think
lot in cash-based businesses.
financial systems and planning are huge in that regard. One thing I did want to come to, and since you mentioned the pandemic, we were talking a little earlier about you kind of going through the pandemic and realizing that government contract world, which is hideously complicated, involves epic amounts of paperwork, that world was a locus of opportunity for a lot of your clients to create a more sustainable, safer income, right? Ongoing, contractually based.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how that evolved for you guys and how you've kind of turned that into something that you're bringing to the toolkit for your clients.
Okay.
For us, it was really how we started discovering it is at one point we were working in a family business that
Mm-hmm.
was a government-based program. And what we did realize during the pandemic, this program was not affected whatsoever.
Okay.
So, that money was still coming
Yeah.
in. And as we were kind of seeing everything that was happening, especially in the New York and New Jersey region, and all the businesses that were
Yeah.
suffering.
Oh.
And I guess I think it was one day that we had that friend who that's all that person does is just apply for government contracts and like
Have
hire
different.
out.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, why are not small businesses doing
Yeah,
this? Like, this
that's
is
amazing to me.
guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
people are struggling. This is some
Wow.
way they
Oh.
could keep afloat. And
Hmm.
we just started reaching out and kind of thinking, hey, like, have you thought of doing this? And they were
Right.
like, oh no, like, that's a headache. Or some people were receptive, and we were like, you know what? It's not a big deal. Like, let's get on this. If we have to hire somebody who like specializes in writing proposals, you do
Right.
that. You pay them what, $75, $100, however much it
Yeah.
may be, have them write that up for you. Um, and then see where it goes from there.
Right.
And I think we started as we continued doing that, and these businesses just started realizing, oh, wow, this is a viable option. We were
Mm-hmm.
like, well, why not help other people? I
And
think sometimes people have resources and they just don't necessarily think of how to pivot in that moment.
yeah,
And I
Right.
think that was something we always discussed. We were like, during disaster and like catastrophe, it's really understanding where is the opportunity right now.
and sometimes there are certain programs, or there are certain programs like no matter what happens, actually, the money doesn't stop flowing.
Yeah,
There are
even
Right.
during
certain,
like
yeah,
government
yeah,
shutdown.
there are certain contract, yeah, actually, yes,
Interesting.
that they get
Right.
impacted, but there are certain programs even during a government contract, the money keeps coming. So at the end of the day, it's very safe for you to have that stream of income for your business and offer those services, because once you have the system in place,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a lot easier. You gotta have a system for the paperwork, you gotta have a system for it to deliver the service. Once you have these two in place, everything's good.
Yeah, and I
Right.
think it's
Uh,
just about learning to diversify and implementing multiple streams of income.
yeah.
I think that's
Sure.
really been the mantra for this
Yeah.
past year.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's like, I need multiple streams, multiple streams. Like after
Right.
this, like I'm never letting this happen to me again. And I think that's really what we've been just helping small businesses is like, don't only be dependent on what works for you now,
Yeah.
Right.
because obviously we've seen with getting shut down that it's not guaranteed because what happens during that time if you don't have
Mm-hmm.
a reserve to keep you afloat for like a year to 2 years.
Yep.
So that's really what we've kind of helped the small businesses in that sense is
Yeah.
find that outlet to help them and not think it's only for the big ballers or the big shots to get, because there's
Oh, yeah.
contracts for everyone out
Yeah.
there.
Well, and let me just kind of pause so that you guys don't have to say this. I've been doing this 23 years, my fourth business. We've done a lot of work with state entities. And I will say, just from experience in government stuff too, that simply the ability to have a partner who you trust help you navigate this process is worth well more than its weight in gold. I mean, whatever you may be paying for that service to work with you
Right.
guys is worth the money, because the process is complicated enough on its own.
Right,
Paperwork, this, that, and
exactly.
the other, and the accounting and the auditing and the accountability and all that. Like, that's a huge discipline to understand and master. But just knowing what's available and being able to help people navigate that is a gigantic advantage in that marketplace. So, I mean, you guys, to be honest with you, kind of soft pedaled how incredible it is that you offer this. So let's just get that out in the open. It's a big deal.
Of course.
So,
Yeah,
so-
we never want to preface it with all the problems it comes with.
yeah, because those
And the
government
headache.
and those government contracts encompass almost any aspect of economic activity. I mean, transportation, paper
Exactly.
goods, whatever. So if you're listening and you've got a business that you think, hey, I wonder if that'd be, definitely get in touch with Marsha and Kevin. I have never heard of anybody offering this kind of counseling to small business, other than the kind of like, you could get government contracts on some late night TV ad. Definitely
Right.
not a good way to go. But someone who can help you navigate and say, hey, here's a program, here's a contracting authority that's out for you. This would be a really good fit. That's gigantic. I mean, it's game changing for people, 100% game changing. So I can't
You
recommend
definitely
that
have to
enough.
work for it. I want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
preface
Oh.
that. You have to work for it. It's,
Yeah.
it's not like easy dandy, but
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
worth it,
It is,
when
yeah.
Right.
it like
Yeah.
works out.
Once you have everything set up, like I said, once you have everything set up, you have this current system in place.
Mm-hmm.
And you get
Yeah, you
approved
get
and you can
approved.
do
Yeah.
it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there are certain programs you also have to learn billing and all of these things,
And
which
that's
will
what
help
we're
with.
here for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think business owners, inherently can understand the argument that says, hey, our goal here is, again, not to make you dependent on the thing that works for you today. Right. And how are we going to do that? Well, let's provide this opportunity to exercise your business in another channel. And that channel carries with it, yes, some burden, if you will, in terms of record keeping and forms and applications and all of that. But it also carries with it a lot of security. So, I mean, in a sense, I'm helping you buy insurance for your business. while doing your business, right? That's huge. I mean, I think that's a gigantic advantage and something that people would be well worth thinking hard about if their business dovetails with that. That's really great. How did you guys get started together on this?
Really by accident.
Yeah.
It was really bad. I mean, we've tried like so many businesses before.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's like every entrepreneur story.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've been there. So I think really it was during the time that we were working at the family business that we discovered that we naturally like were good at this.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Sure.
seeing the difference that we were able to make and
Mm-hmm.
help improve process and financial recordings and all of this, we're like, well, why not just offer this to people? Like, there's so many small business owners that need this,
Need it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that probably don't know they need it. But
Right.
it's our job to put ourselves out there.
And we started meeting people who actually need it.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
from there,
like
actually
word of
started-
mouth and stuff like that, it just kind of picks up little by
Yeah.
little. And as I said, we're constantly like finding new innovative ways to help. And also just I really think like peer learning has been something that's been helpful. Like we
Mm-hmm.
encourage our clients, for instance, like if you do have like a peer in the business or someone who's
Right.
doing something similar to you, reach out. Like
Yeah, that's
there's
true.
no harm. I feel like a lot of people are scared to ask and learn from others.
Right.
And everyone, especially sometimes in business, can be secretive. But if that person is like secure in what they do and isn't like in fear of being taken
Right.
out, I'm pretty sure they're more than willing
Oh,
to
yeah,
share
yeah.
with you what
What
they've
they're going-
learned
yeah,
and what they've been through. And I think that's something that's like for us, we're more than willing to ask. Like, if you want to help and offer your wisdom, that's wonderful, and we're here to accept it. If you
Yeah.
don't, I respect that, and we'll leave you alone.
Never
And-
hurts to ask. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's just really something that's worked for us, and it's helped us. And I think also through our past endeavors, through successes and failures,
Mhm.
we've really looked at the lessons, and we're like,
Mhm.
what did we do right? What did
What
we
did we
do
do?
wrong?
Yeah.
How-
And we developed from that
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
And I think that helps us now navigate through the consulting and knowing how to pivot. Like, I think a
Right.
few years ago, if you asked Kevin and Marsha, like, how do you pivot right now? We're like, what? Like, I don't know. Like, we're just doing this. We're just fixated on this and making this work. Now you tell us to pivot, we're quick. We're like, all
Right.
right, what
I
are we
love
gonna
it.
do? And I think we're just really out here trying to help people do that too, because it's so important to be able to adapt to new circumstances, your environment, whatever it may be,
Right.
and continue succeeding in the best way possible for yourself and your like family, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
and I love it when you find that fit between your talents and the marketplace, right? I mean, that's when beautiful things happen, and you get to serve people in a way that's genuine and fits with who you are. You know, so everything. Authentic is a little bit of a grandiose term, but
Right.
everything that you are doing is congruent with who you are, and so
Yeah.
the work becomes kind of an expression of just making the universe a better place,
Right.
as opposed to saying to yourself, "Oh, geez, I got to go print T-shirts today."
Yeah.
So I think that's great. Well, I tell you what, they're really all of this is really the preamble to the two most important questions in the world, and I'm going to ask them to you right now.
I go-
Number one question: if you guys could have a meal, this is hard because this is what's tough when you both come on. You only get
Yeah,
one answer.
yeah.
If you guys could have a meal with any living figure, who would that person be, and what meal would you have with them?
Well, for me, it would be Elon Musk.
All right, now, okay, see, because now you guys got to decide between you. We're only going to talk about one of these meals.
Wait, for together?
Yeah, you got to decide together. Y'all are y'all are partners. So there you go.
No, Kev. Okay.
Together.
I would choose Dan Pena. So between Elon
Yeah.
and Dan, who we going with, Kevin?
Wait, why can't we have a whole meeting, one meeting with both of them?
Yeah, why can't we just be the four of us? Have a
Okay,
great dinner?
Okay, here you go. I'll let you do. All right, so you're going to have a meal.
Yeah.
The four of you with Elon Musk and Dan Pena, right? So now you're going to have to answer a question I don't ask anybody else. Well, first off, what meal are you going to have? What are you going to go eat?
I'm eating a steak.
Okay.
What are you eating?
I don't know.
Steakhouse with Elon and Dan.
Oh, where would it be, or
What are we?
Or well, you know, where are you going? You know, what's your, you know?
He doesn't. So what would you?
Anything plain-based? I don't know. A plain-based meal?
Not even seafood? You're not even doing seafood?
Yeah.
All right.
You're doing plant-based?
Yeah,
oh, you're
plant-based.
difficult. Dan kind of call you soft.
Yeah, Dan is not about that life for you. No.
He's not about that.
Yeah.
He's my spirit animal.
Yeah.
I feel like I walk around with that level of vigor in my soul, but people just don't see it because it's disguised.
So now here's
you just gotta let it fuel you, and you know.
So here's the question:
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think Dan Pena and Elon Musk have in common that would make for a great conversation over that meal?
Honestly, it's really the work ethic.
No,
Okay.
I don't think that's what it is,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and for me, actually, what I see in both of them is the work ethic and the dedication to what they do. You know, because the opinion is all about the performance. Actually,
Right.
I agree with performance.
And honestly, Elon is the same too, because what his goals is like, okay, I gotta deliver this amount of cars, or about the SpaceX and everything. So he works toward that.
I mean, I think
it's
for
both performance and work ethic for me.
performance, I would agree with. I do think they do share a similar mentality in regards to like not being suckers. That's more in Dan Pena's words.
Yeah.
I think they both have the same ideology in regards to like MBAs. A lot of MBAs they feel have like ruined the spirit of hustle and like performance in the workplace. By kind of just, as I said, making everything so rigid and like, by the book. And so I think they kind of share that same sentiment. So I would say it would be more like not being like suckers, not really caring about the rules because they're constantly pushing the boundaries.
Wait, are you saying like they don't care about what people think?
No, I'm saying they don't care about following the rules. They constantly are pushing the boundaries.
Oh, you can't follow rules sometimes in business.
No, but that's the thing. Like business, right? Like the whole idea is like businesses are run by MBAs, and MBAs are about following the rules and this and that. Like I think they share that commonality and thought process. Like, okay, like don't ruin it for me. Like I'm out here doing great things.
Okay.
Well, and I think those two, the work ethic and that idea kind of combine in some way for both of those people, in that, they are both what I would truly call visionaries.
Yeah.
Whose answer to, Elon, so let's go to Mars. Well, you can't, I don't want to hear I can't. You just tell me what we need to do to get to Mars.
Exactly.
And we're going to go do that. And we're going to do it in 2 years. I don't want to wait around for 10 years, And so I think that is, that embodies that just work hard, drive hard, do hard, combined with, I mean, I'm sure you've got some lovely spreadsheets and they're great and all, but I got stuff I got to get done.
Yeah.
So
that's really where I'm getting at.
I love it. All right. Well, so I hate to see conflict between business owners, so I'm going to ask the second question, and I'm going to allow you each to answer it as opposed to demand that you give one answer. So second question is, and this is great because you see people at startup all the time. When somebody's starting out in business, no matter what vertical they're in, each of you, can you think of one piece of advice, if you could only give them one piece of advice, that you would give to a new business owner starting out?
See, for me, is keep marching on. Because when you're starting a business, like you get caught up in the things that don't matter sometimes.
Right.
For example, instead of focusing on actually, is my product great or is my service great? Because once the service or product is good, everybody else is going to be talking about it. No, once you deliver to that first client or that first customer, the product is good, that first client, that first customer, once you take care of them, they're gonna get more people for you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
so
sometimes it
yeah.
has to do with timing too. I
Well,
think there's so many
there's
components
timing
involved.
involved as well, but for me, it would be actually, you kind of have to weed out the things that are unnecessary and
Right.
focus on the core of what you actually want to deliver.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. For me, I would say that you're only as good as your team. And what I would
Yeah.
mean by that is that there's no vision and there's nothing you can execute in this life by yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're always going to need a team, whether it's the early stages, later on, and your success is truly defined by how successful your team is
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
how good you work together. So never have the I only mentality
Right.
and understand that it takes a village,
Right.
and you're just as good as they are. So it's really important to surround yourself around like supportive people, but also
Mm-hmm.
people who will um, challenge you, people who will support you, and people who are driven and like-minded to a degree. You
Yeah.
know?
Right. Well, and I think, again, those two ideas come together in the way that you say, hey, you're starting a business. Here's 100% of what you need to do as a business owner. Well,
Mhm.
here's the 30% that actually involves doing the work that you're really good at.
Right.
Hmm.
So that other 70% should be done by other people.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Exactly.
and I don't care if the team is somebody you've outsourced wholly, like a VA or a service firm, or you hire somebody. Having that team, regardless of whether you quote unquote own their time as the W-2 employee as opposed to a contractor, you need to be in a place with your contractors that your team is great.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So whether they're an employee or they're not, you're so right. The strength of that team enables you to go focus on your work
Yeah.
so that you
Mhm.
can create an amazing product or experience. So obviously, clearly you guys are meant to be in business together.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Your answers may differ, but they overlap beautifully, right?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I love it. I love it. And again, Marsha Marseille and Kevin Castel, Castel Consulting Company, Castel consultingcompany.com, based out of New York, New Jersey, but working with people all over the United States. Please go check them out. What a pleasure to have you guys on. I think you're doing great thing for small businesses that really nobody I know of in the market is providing that service right now. So, 100% a fantastic business, and it was a pleasure to have you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very much. It was a
much.
pleasure coming on. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can find contact information about our guest in the show notes for this episode. This has been the How I Make Money podcast by Brand Distillers. To learn more, visit branddistillers.com.